the Crypt.
Hello, boys and ghouls. Welcome to episode 48 of Dads from the Crypt, a Tales from the Crypt podcast. My name is Jason. I'm joined by Jody.
Hello.
And Mondo.
Hello.
And tonight we have Rich from the Horror Script podcast. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Our pleasure to have you on. Why don't you go ahead and tell us about your podcast and tell us about when you first started watching Tales from the Crypt.
Sure. Thank you. Me and my brother Miles do a horror movie reviews on our podcast, from older 70s slashers to the new age, whatever is coming up and about. So we just love everything horror because of our parents. So it's whatever could scare you or gross you out, we're into. So we love it. And
where does the name Horror Script come from?
I actually just kind of made it up. I was actually just looking around trying to think of what we can call it, because I just knew I wanted to do it with him. And I was just trying to think of something, and we loved looking at the scripts of these horror movies and other movies in general too, but kind of just added two together, threw it by him. He was like, all right, yeah, it sounds okay enough. We just went with it.
It's good.
Thanks. And then when we were kids, it's funny, my dad had one of those little boxes, that you just plug into the TV and miraculously you get HBO and other channels. And Tales from the Crypt would come on every once in a while. Me and my brother would just sit there and watch them. And we were like, this is great. What is this?
I guess you can say that's almost like early YouTube. Like,
yeah,
I can watch anything with this box that this guy behind Radio Shack sold me.
Yeah. Oh God, I'll never forget the time my brother came around downstairs and he goes, Rich, come on, you got to go upstairs. And I'm like, what's the matter? What's going on? He goes, I found this channel. I'm like, what channel? Oh, it's all naked people on there. You got to come and see it. It was the Skinemax or whatever it was, but he was just entranced. I was like, oh, I don't know if we're supposed to watch this. We were pretty young.
Isn't it crazy how much, like, I still remember, like, my friend had one of those cable boxes where if you went to the Skinemax to the naughty channels real fast and back normal channel, you get like 3 seconds of like a side boob. And the shit we had to do to see boobs back when we were kids.
Oh my God. Yes.
I feel like that's something that just people our age will understand. Like, sitting there watching like scrambled HBO for 10 minutes just for like the occasional moment when it would clear up. You're like, oh, it's gone again.
Yeah. I think I told you guys before, when I was in elementary school, my side hustle was selling finisher lists for Mortal Kombat and Mortal Kombat 2.
Oh, cool.
But when I got to middle school, my buddy found his brother's stash. So we sell pages out of Playboys or Penthouses at like $2 a piece, which is premium middle school money. Like, there were kids that didn't eat for weeks because and we never got caught, surprisingly. One of the kids one time, I'm just gonna say, he got caught and tried to turn us in, and we denied it, and after that we stopped because we didn't want to have that conversation with our parents.
They want to have that heat on you.
All right.
And what a snitch, by the way. What a snitch. I remember that shit, Tom.
Get stitches.
I remember that shit.
All right. We've got a lot to talk about tonight, so we're going to roll into a couple things. First, programming notes. Next weekend, we will be a 4th of July weekend, and we're going to release our Ernest Dickerson interview. He is the director of Tales from the Crypt Demon Nights, among many, many other things. I sat down with him, did almost a 2-hour interview. We talked about everything from Miles Davis to Eddie Murphy to Do the Right Thing to Bones and Walking Dead, and I can't remember everything, but we on so many subjects. We could have talked movies and stuff all night. So really fun interview. That'll be in your feed July 4th weekend. They'll be back to our regular episode reviews the weekend after that. with King of the Road. But tonight is a very special night. So the day this episode comes out will be the day before our 1-year anniversary of putting out the first episode of Dads from the Crypt. For those of you not watching on YouTube, I might notice a couple of things actually. Jordy and Mondo have some special libations to mark the occasion, and Mondo isn't wearing glasses. He just got LASIK. So
I did get LASIK. It's pretty awesome. Like I can see shit now without glasses. That's pretty much what it is.
yeah. But I feel like I like to take stock in things at periodic times, you know, especially anniversaries and stuff. I think it's really important to see where you've been, what you've accomplished, to help inform, you know, where you are now and, you know, what's possible in the future. And when I look back on the last year, I am so floored. I did a count. We put out 84 episodes in 1 year.
Man,
That's insane.
I need a raise. Like
You deserve it. If I had it, I would give it to you. We've had amazing guests on our podcast. We've had incredible interviews. Like the first interview request I put out was for John Kassir, and within like half a day, his agent was like, "Yeah, how's Thursday?" I'm like, "Are you kidding me? That's it? Am I being pranked?"
The John Kassir one still blows me away because we had done what, like 2 episodes by the time you booked him.
Yeah,
Like
we were rounding out the first season, so I was like, I think we're 4 or 5, and
but either way, like we were not even established as a podcast, and somehow we got John Kassir, and it still blows my mind.
Oh yeah, no, I was like, okay, wait, how do I do an interview? Like we had to figure it out all from scratch, everything. It was just mind-boggling. And then we did William Sadler again, like right off the bat, you know. And then we got a ton of no's after that from a ton of other people, but that's fine. That's the nature of it. But to get 2 amazing yeses right off the bat was just like mind-boggling. And then, you know, not only were putting out our own episodes, we were helping, you know, one of the original producers from Tales From The Crypt putting out his own podcast on our feed. We won an award. Like it's so mind-boggling. Is the word I keep going back to. Like 1 year ago, you could not have convinced me when we put out our first episode, half of these things would have happened. I would have bet money against it.
Yeah, if you'd have asked me a year ago, would you still be doing this podcast in a year? I would have said, yeah, definitely, probably. I don't see why not. It's easy. But if you'd asked me, like, will you have all these great guests on here? Will you have done basically a Demon Night panel and had discussions with the writers and discussions, like you said, with Al Katz, with Eric Dickerson, and like Jason's going to be modest here, but he's kind of like been the catalyst for some of these producers and directors and special effects guys who haven't talked to each other in years to get back and talk to each other. So if Demon Night 2 ever happens, like Jason's the spark to that flame.
I'll take credit for that.
Jason has ambition, man, and networking skills, and I've been so impressed by all that, man. Like, I don't know how you do it.
Well, and really, and I was gonna get to this, that like I could have done it without your guys' support. And like, yeah, you guys think I'm this bold, outgoing person doing all these crazy, ambitious things, but it's like knowing that you guys have my back and have faith in me is what gives me the confidence to do it.
You know, I sat in a couple of interviews and I'm just like the silent partner. I'm like, this is terrifying. I'm just going to let Jason talk.
It's the act as if you can do it and you'll have faith.
If I can just give a couple shout outs. So I have
a whole list. So go ahead.
I had to rock my Bloody Good Horror shirt because if it wasn't for Bloody Good Horror, we wouldn't be doing this. Mm-hmm. That's just the reality of it. And if it wasn't for Caitlin, who went off and did her podcast, which kind of was also the spark for us, we wouldn't be doing this. So big shout out. We wouldn't know each other if it wasn't for the Bloody Good Horror podcast.
Yeah, it's crazy. 84 episodes. We've never actually met in person.
Yeah, we've tried to make it happen, but like Jason did not want to meet me in Los Angeles, and Jody's like, I'm not going to Blobfest now because family, they're important to me. I love them.
And there's too many snakes for Jody lives, so I refuse to go there.
Chattanooga Film Fest didn't happen in person this year.
Yeah, that was
it happened in person.
And we'll figure it all out someday. But I don't have a whole lot. 'Cause I know Jason, you're going to cover everything, but A shout out to my family who lets me have the time to do this in this time drain, because Lord knows I have enough hobbies that are time drains. Like I joke to people, like, I thought shit's supposed to get easier when I get older, but like I go to work all day, usually come home for an hour, maybe end the podcast, go to the gym for a couple hours, come home, take a shower, eat dinner, do whatever I have to do. It's bedtime. So the fact they let me do this and know it's a passion of mine is really cool. And then a big shout out to my co-hosts who without this wouldn't be possible. And I've really enjoyed doing this with you guys. It's really good for my brain, my mind, body, and soul. And I couldn't pick two better dudes to do this with. So thank you guys.
Yeah, I gotta say the same thing for my family, because I've got 6 kids. We've discussed this.
Mhm.
There's a bunch of them, and they're all mostly in the other room right now, hanging out. My oldest kids are taking care of the little ones, so my wife can sleep and I can do this. It's a whole production, but everybody makes it work. And
you remember in Wayne's World when they opened that door and there's just like an action scene going on with fighting? That's what I imagine if Jody opens his office door, it's just chaos.
Oh yeah, no, sometimes it is.
Yeah,
I get the little ones to sleep before I come in here, so usually it's not quite so bad. But yeah, no, it's a whole effort. It's a whole effort from everybody to make things like this happen, and to give us time to sit here and have these discussions. And we've got some great folks that have been on the show, but also we've got our listeners and the people who've supported us since the beginning. I got to call out Tommy specifically, because I feel like Tommy knows more about the show than I do.
Yeah.
So like, good job, Tommy. Thanks for listening.
Shout out Tommy. Like whenever we mess up something in an episode, he's got it.
Yeah, he's on it.
And also a shout out to me for getting to our protection that one time, like 20 years ago, because if I didn't do that, I wouldn't be here either.
There we go. I have a whole list. Obviously, thank you to the of all of our families for giving us the time and the space to do this. And they know it's good for us, and we appreciate that. Thank you to all of the guests on our podcast, all of our people that interviewed. Really big thank you to William Sadler, who's just been so generous with his time, doing a big interview and then doing the Q&A, and just always being there whenever I asked for any favors. Been so gracious. Again, thank you to all the amazing and friendly podcasters we've talked to, like Rich, who's just kind of sitting on a little love fest right now. But I've met so many amazing people this year, and everyone's been so friendly, and the podcasting community has been so supportive. It's been really inspiring. Again, thank you to Al Katz, who's just become an incredible partner and just a real good friend. I talk to him almost on a daily basis now. We're just texting all the time with each other. Again, that's another amazing friend I've made. And speaking of true friends, we already have all of our friends and supporters, the Blanket Horror crew, and Eric and Caitlin have already talked about Caitlin and how inspiring she's been, and Eric's just been really supportive. He did all our music and just answer all of our questions and getting us off the ground.
Oh yeah.
And then also thank you to everyone who listens. Like the fact that people actually take time out of their day, precious time, to listen to us is just mind-boggling. So thank you for being there for us. And again, thank you, Jody and Mondo. You've been amazing podcast brothers.
It's been a cool journey. Rich, were you the one I was talking to about the gate?
Yeah.
Awesome, cool. But that was like one of the coolest things. And Rich's like, am I bothering you? I'm like, no, this is like super exciting. And we're talking about if the band from the gate was real. And so I started to research on it, and the Horror Scripts podcast actually went out and contacted them. You guys contacted the bandits themselves, right?
I did. I reached out to them on Twitter, and he, one of the members actually responded back, and I was like, holy shit, this is what they're talking about. Like people responding back. I'm like, yeah, he was the first person that, ever like answered me. So I was excited about that.
What's so cool about it is that no one had, like, this is like one of those things that I was trying to research it and no one had a concrete answer, and you guys are the first people to come up with a concrete answer.
Yeah,
it's so great.
And there was false information out there too, actually, because I watched on Twitter or on YouTube and stuff like that, about different movies, and one of the things was 10 things you didn't know about the gate, and they said on that was, oh yeah, the band was real and this was them and everything, and I'm like, oh no, that's actually false. I'm like, you didn't do your research, because I spoke to a band member and he said no. But it was cool. Yeah, he was really cool about it, and just said he wished they would ask them. So
Nice.
That's awesome.
But thank you for the reference, because I wouldn't even have had any idea on where to even begin on who to reach out to on that. So
I know it's fun, and if anybody out there big fans of the Gate, like that, you guys did a really good job on that podcast. Really good job.
oh, thank you.
Mm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
one thing this last year has taught me is, when I've watched, I've been a movie fan my entire life, and I've watched a million horror movies in particular. But I've always kind of thought of all of these people that make these movies as being like way out there, like out of reach and everything. And some of these people are just the coolest people who are willing to sit down and talk with, three dudes who, are just starting a podcast or have been doing a podcast for a year, who are willing to just come and hang out. Like it's awesome.
Mhm.
I've loved just kind of that. It's changed my whole perception of what celebrities are like,
dude, we were the first people ever to release the concept art of the key from Demon Knight. How
I know.
fucking
That was awesome.
It's
and
nuts.
and those guys,
Ethan Cyrus.
Ethan Cyrus were just like, yeah, I had that art somewhere. I'll just send it to you guys. They go ahead and post it. It's like, I'm internally, I'm freaking out while they're saying this. Like, what the fuck is happening in my life?
Yeah. All right. But
Think of all
we-
one more thing we just have to mention one more time. Tia Carrera did retweet us, and
Yeah,
so I still haven't gotten over that.
Wait, she retweeted us, and Kathy Ireland follows me on Twitter,
Yeah.
and I don't follow her back like a boss.
Kathy
We might as well
Ireland,
just end
wow.
it now because there's nowhere else to go.
Yeah.
It's not going to get better than this.
End the
Like,
podcast.
like once a week, I look her up, and it still says follow back. I'm like, haha, no. Post more interesting shit, Kathy. Maybe I will.
That's a power move, Mondo.
I had to do it. And then you said we have some special ales for tonight. So, a good friend of mine, Jason from Arizona, he used to be a chef down here in Las Vegas. He gave me these last time I was visiting. I was in Phoenix for work, and I visited him. It's a series by it's called Oso Brewery, OHSO, from Gilbert, Arizona. It's their Ales from the Crypt series,
Nice.
and this is Morning
That's cool.
Grind. It is a Willet Pot Still Reserve Bourbon Barrel Aged Imperial Breakfast Stout with maple syrup and coffee. If you like sweet shit, if you like your pancakes drenched in if you like to pour a bowl of syrup and then place your pancakes inside of said bowl, you would love this. It's actually really well done, but I'm gonna get through like an eighth of this before I have to tap out because it's pretty
You're
pretty
gonna
sweet.
you're gonna have diabetes soon.
Either that's going to happen or I can't be held
Diabetes.
accountable for what happens after I finish this. So
or you say in the podcast.
Yeah. Mondo and I are both drinking 14% AVB beers tonight. So who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? I've got a Bourbon County Stout because I live out in the middle of nowhere and my options are limited. But there's always the Bourbon County Stout to
tonight's
keep me warm.
tonight's a night we find out about Jody's fetishes. We'll see what happens.
Public school. That's Jody's fetish.
Wait, what?
I don't even know.
I don't know what that was, but we're just going to keep going.
All right, let's get to our episode review before we get off track. I'm fine with going off track after the episode review.
I'm just going to chug this now and see what fucking happens.
All right. So tonight we're talking about Tales From The Crypt episode Showdown, released August 1st, 1992. Jody, thank God you're here. Give us the plot synopsis.
All right. So we open on the Crypt Keeper in probably one of my favorite Crypt Keeper costumes we've seen in a while. He is in full cowboy regalia, dueling with a skeleton with his two pistols. So just fantastic, full body Crypt Keeper in a cowboy costume. Then we get into our story. We've got two cowboys who are riding through the desert with the heat all around them and everything. One of them's been shot. And he says, we can't let him catch us. And the other one, whose name is Billy, says, well, we lost that posse 3 days ago. And then the first guy falls off his horse. I think his name is Harley. Yeah, Harley. He falls off his horse and kind of moans on the ground for a minute. And Billy shoots him dead and buries him. Then we see the posse finding that grave, knowing that it's fresh, and they continue on after them. Billy shows up in a small town looking for a place to stay. He talks to a man who's sitting outside of a store. That man says, I'm calling you out. He's a Texas Ranger named Tom. They square off in the street for a gunfight. Billy shoots him once in the heart with a really nice bullet effect with explosion there. and then shoots him again, and the ranger dies in the street. Then we see Billy in a saloon. He gets a bottle of whiskey and he starts playing cards with the man sitting at a table. This man's name is Cornelius Boss. He tries to sell Billy a miracle cure, but Billy does not want to have anything to do with it. He pulls a gun on him, calls him a snake oil salesman. This guy says that this cure quickens the reflexes. And he says, I'll give you a bottle for free. And if it doesn't live up to the hype, I'll give you $1 tomorrow. So Billy takes the drink, chugs it all down, and immediately starts hallucinating. He sees Doc Holliday, who he says he killed. That's not how Doc Holliday actually died, but maybe there's 2 Doc Hollidays. He says he killed this Doc Holliday. Then he sees Harley, his friend who he shot earlier. And then he sees the ranger, Tom, who he just killed in the street. And then more and more of the people stand up. He realizes the entire saloon is filled up with people who he has killed. And Cornelius himself was caught in the crossfire of one of Billy's fights. They kind of all advance on Billy, kind of back him into a corner. And Tom says that they are in hell. He says, Billy, do you remember what happened after our fight? Do you remember walking away from the street? Do you remember coming into the saloon? And Billy can't remember. And he starts kind of yelling for them to all go away and covers his head up. And then when he raises his head, they're all gone. But what he sees instead is a modern day tour group. You got a tour group leader all dressed in shiny rhinestone cowboy outfit. And they're coming to the saloon, and the leader is talking about how Billy was there, how the great Billy Quentin was Quentin. Yeah, I guess it's Quentin. Was shot. Quintain. Thank you. I knew something was wrong when I said it. He talked about how Billy Quintain was an outlaw who was shot in the street right there. There's pictures of him dead. And the building is now a gift shop. Billy's very confused about what he's seeing. And the tour group leader says that Billy still haunts that building to this day. They all go back outside, and Billy's just kind of standing there. He says, don't leave me here. Don't leave me here. And he looks outside. The whole city is filled with tourists. It's like a ghost town attraction. And then he hears Tom calling. I'm calling you out, Billy. So he goes out in the streets with kind of a grin on his face. This is the world he knows. They square up for the gunfight again. Billy and Tom do the exact same things as earlier. Tom gets shot twice. And then instead of going in the saloon, Billy yells out, I know you're here. And all of the rest of the posse start shooting at Billy. Billy shoots back. He, does a good job of taking out a bunch of them, but he gets shot and dies in the street. The posse poses with his body. And then we go back to the present, where Billy and Tom are visiting their own graves. And then they ride off with all the dead men from the saloon. It's kind of like gotta be honest, I don't exactly know what happened here. We went back in time and forward in time, and then maybe we relived something, or we saw something that we didn't see. I don't know.
Time is a flat circle.
Time is a flat circle. But I think where we end is some kind of cowboy Valhalla. The whole thing about Valhalla was it's endless battle forever. For all eternity, we battle together. So this is
actually, sometimes you eat and sometimes you fuck. But yeah, usually you're fighting.
Yeah. It's Valhalla.
Not you can fuck whoever you want. You want to fuck the people you're fighting.
No.
Jason made a weird face, so he didn't understand. So I was making sure.
No. Valhalla is mead and women and battle. Well, and I think where we end up this story is cowboy Valhalla. They ride off into the sunset, a bunch of dead guys. Are they going back to the past? Are they going to the future? I don't know. It's very unclear where this story goes in the end, but I kind of dig this. They're just riding off in the sunset together. Everyone who's killed, I guess they all are cool with it now. Well, but that's where it ends.
All right. Thank you, Jody. Rich, you're our guest. You can start us off. What did you think of this episode?
I liked it. It's a romanticized Western in a way. So I really enjoyed it. And the David Morse I really like. That he's, he shows up in a couple movies that I'm a big fan of. And then Neil, what is it, Giuntoli? He's in one of my childhood favorites horror movies for the Child's Play, of course.
Ooh, yeah.
So two actors that I was familiar with that I really enjoyed watching, and then Richard Donner, of course. But you're going to get into that. I don't want to jump ahead too much on you.
Go ahead.
But pretty much love everything he does. And after looking up, I have a lot of stuff to watch because apparently I'm a huge fan of his. I didn't even know it.
Yeah, he has an amazing catalog. You just say it, like freaking The Omen, the 70s Superman movies, Lethal Weapon, The Goonies. It's all just such a That's just like
him and Mel
cream of the
Gibson.
crop. Yeah,
him and Mel Gibson must have been great friends, because he had all the Lethal Weapons. He had Maverick. He had Conspiracy Theory. It was like, all right,
he found his guy.
Yeah.
All right, Mondo, what'd you think of this episode?
Oh, I liked it a lot. At first, I didn't kind of know what they're going, and to Jody's point, what I kind of saw it as was he when he took the potion, he was kind of having his DMT or his mushroom moment, where he was kind of almost looking into his own future,
His spirit vision,
and then realized he had the choice to die honorable. He knew he was going to die, and then he kind of got a glimpse of what would happen if he died dishonorably versus honorably, and he chose the honorable way. And I do think, like, I think what happens when you hit your late 30s, you just somehow are into Westerns again. Like, I don't know, like, I think there's a good 15-year period of my life where I didn't give a fuck about Westerns, and now I'm like, yeah, give me all the Westerns. But I look at that as almost the ending being that I'd say they became friends due to mutual respect at that point. Like, and I always saw that as kind of in the old West gun duels you see in movies when, like, I think there's a bit of respect when someone kills you, because, like, fuck, they're faster than I was. They beat me. They got me. There's, like, you know what I mean? Like, it's an honorable death.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there are actual stories in the Old West. I remember hearing about Billy the Kid. The guy who eventually arrested Billy the Kid kind of became a friend to him. Like, they went around together and they talked and hung out. They respected each other for what they did. Like, they're both doing their parts. One's a lawman, one's an outlaw, but they do what they do. And eventually, they kind of struck up a friendship before he got killed.
Or even stories
about
of, like,
people who are kind of in the same world like that,
No, well, it's kind of like my wife, kind of the first time she came to my jiu-jitsu competition, she's like, you guys go out there and try to strangle each other and break his limbs, and afterwards you guys are all smiles and hugging each other. Yeah. What the fuck? And it's like, no, you have a mutual respect and admiration for someone that's willing to go out there and put it all on the line with you. Like, you can't.
My like kids with karate, some of their best friends are people who just kicked them in the face, or they just kicked in the face before, and then they love seeing each other. They give each other a hug.
We say the same thing, like, after we're sitting in the locker room changing. It's like, damn, like, you know what we do on Saturdays with our friends? We try to kill each other and we fucking laugh about it. We're a bunch of sick fucks. But there's mutual admiration in that, because I think that's kind of what the ending's about is, while in their nemesis in life, in death, they both realized they had a lot more in common. I thought they did, and had a mutual admiration there. And because he finally decided to take the way out and take the honorable death. That was kind of his redemption. Really kind of weird in the sense that there wasn't really a clear cut antagonist and protagonist, how they're kind of both just kind of skirting that line of in betweeners. And as far as
the antagonist is the mortal coil.
No, definitely. I do love the man from Duluth when he opens his coat up and shows his bullet wound. That guy has a great, like, creepy presence to him, but just the way he's talking. And it's funny because at one point Billy says, "What, are you supposed to be the devil?" And I thought the same thing. I'm like, this guy's going to be the devil. He goes, "No, just a bystander that was in the wrong place at the wrong time." I was like, ooh, that cut even worse. But I think the whole middle scene where he's being surrounded by all these people who've died by his hands, that's like the true horror of this episode. Because before his death, he has to look all of this in the eye and be like, I did all of this. And it's almost like how they say when people die, your life flashes before your eyes. Well, imagine though, instead of that, if just the people you wronged came to tell you how you wronged them, whether you know you wronged them or not. And I think that's what's interesting about it is because, of course, there's people in the saloon that he knew, like, yeah, I killed you, like Jody said, Doc Holliday, but yet the bystander I thought was so cool to be like that foil, I guess, because he was the only person he didn't recognize, showing that, man, and I think that's when his brain kind of goes like, how many people did I fucking kill that I didn't even know I killed? And yeah, but I actually thought this was a fantastic episode too.
Jody, I think you're next.
Yeah, no, I you did kind of a weird echoey thing just now. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed this episode a lot more than I thought I would at the beginning of it. Like Mondo said, there comes a certain point in life when Westerns suddenly become a thing again. My parents are like deep into it right now. They're in their mid 60s and like they watch Westerns constantly. And I'm finding movies for my dad that he's into. But I feel it coming towards me as well.
Hold on a second. What's a couple? Do you know a couple that your dad are into right now?
Well, I mean, I know they've loved Yellowstone and Ozark and things like that kind of have
Ozark. Ozark actually is not a Western, but you could actually kind of call it a modern Western in a lot of ways.
Yeah. No, I know it definitely has some things with it. Yellowstone does. What's Longmire? They really love Longmire too. So they like all the TV shows. And I've also found him some of the classics like the Outlaw Josie Wells and things like that. So there's a certain point in life when Westerns come back around. And I really liked where this one went. Like it was such an unusual episode of Tales from the Crypt because like I said, there's no bad guy necessarily. There's very little violence or gore other than, just a straight up Western shooting scene, like a Sam Peckinpah movie kind of shot in the chest. But there's just something about this. It's a little more personal, I guess. This is really about this one man kind of coming to grips with his life and what he's done. And there's some moments that are scary, like when all the dead people start coming back. And there's some moments that are more, how do you say that a episode where it's all about cowboys shooting and killing each other is kind of touching, but it kind of is, right?
Well, I'm sorry, I totally forgot my favorite line in the whole episode. He goes, "What, are you taking me to hell?" He goes, "Heaven, hell, I don't know, but it's warm." Like I love that line. Like what a great line.
Yeah, no, it's kind of an emotional episode. It's kind of a touching episode, and I really had a good time with it. I enjoyed it a lot more than I expected to.
I think as you get older too, like seeing how he kind of looked mortality in the eye and accepted it. There's something really cathartic about that. Like I'd be okay if that's how I went out, and now me and my enemy, we just ride together out of mutual respect. Like, yeah, that'd be a pretty rad afterlife.
Yeah.
I'll go.
Jason.
Yes.
Never mind. Somehow your audio just fixed itself. Keep going.
Okay. No, I thought this was a really good episode. I think before we started the podcast, I just had an itch for Tales like a couple months before we did. And then I just Googled or YouTube, just a random episode. This is the one that came up. So this is like this one's still relatively fresh in my memory. Again, directed by Richard Donner. This is the third episode, the last of the 3 episodes he did. He did Dig That Cat and Ventriloquist Dummy. This is written by Frank Darabont, who did Nightmare on Elm Street 3, The Blob, Shawshank Redemption, The Mist, created the Walking Dead series. David Morse, yeah, he just, whenever he pops up, he's just always a good little boost. Like one of my favorite movies is The Hurt Locker. And he just has like a great like one scene as a commander that's just like, you're hot shit to the bomb squad guys. And he's great like in The Green Mile and The Rock and 12 Monkeys. He was in Langoliers.
I love the Langoliers when I was a kid. That's one I watched with my dad.
Also, so the guy who played Cornelius Bosch, Roderick Cook, who's in Amadeus, 9.5 Weeks, who's a big thespian, he was only 58.
Really?
That's some really good makeup job they did.
Interesting.
I would say he looks like he's like 70 something.
Yeah, like in his 70s, 80s almost.
I hope that was makeup.
I mean,
hard living.
I mean, he passed away relatively recently after he made this episode. So
Oh wow.
Yeah, so my take on on a lot of this is that it's from his kind of death perspective. So like it's kind of divorced from a lot of other logic. So yeah, these people in real life were probably pissed at him for killing him, but it's kind of his vision quest, where you know it's more his dream logic than anything else's. This is a very ethereal episode. This might be the most quote artistic episode of Tales from the Crypt, at least that we've seen. It reminds me very much of Near Dark, where it's kind of a Tangerine Dream soundtrack, kind of quasi-Western, with vampire. But that one has vampires, this one has ghosts. It made me think of that a lot. And yeah, there's some great lines, great acting all around. Again, the Cornelius character is really, really good because yeah, you totally think he's gonna be the devil, and he's playing it really well. And then yeah, again, my take on it is that's just kind of his own like death vision as he's going down in the blaze of glory.
Kind of making peace with himself
Mm-hmm.
in his life.
Right. And yeah, I've always been a sucker for Westerns, like especially like the 70s Westerns, the kind of anti-hero, the Sergio Leone, Good, Bad, and the Ugly is one of my all-time favorite movies. Logan, you know, is basically a Western. That movie, I was crying in the theater when I saw Logan. When that little girl takes the cross and puts on its side as an X, I'm just like, nah. I love the soundtrack for this too. And this was Michael Kamen, who's, you know, legendary composer, conductor, who worked with Pink Floyd and Metallica. He did the scores for Highlander, Lethal Weapon, Die Hard, Tales from the Crypt, Demon Knight, Mr. Holland's Opus, Event Horizon, the X-Men series, Iron Giant. It's like, come on, man, leave something good for the rest of us. Yeah, this is a very kind of an outlier in Tales from the Crypt, where usually they're campy, maybe a little on the sleazy side, but this one is like very serious. We'll talk about why probably in a minute. But it's an interesting palate cleanser. It's interesting that last week we had, you know, quite possibly the scariest episode in Tales from the Crypt, you know, subjectively, to one of the most like artistic, you know, contemplative episodes. But it just shows like Mono keeps saying like how this season really is kind of the quiet MVP.
Yeah.
Of some really, really solid episodes.
This is the kind of episode that when it ends, you just kind of sit on your couch for a while going, yeah.
Yeah.
And there's so many directions they
for
could have went.
Yeah, like I could have watched a whole other half hour like of setup, you know, of like seeing him, these little vignettes of him interacting with these other characters. Like, yeah, I'd watch a whole movie of that.
Or maybe going back and seeing how each death happened or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like seeing the ripple effects, you know.
Oh yeah, I thought the potion was going to be the thing that actually killed him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That'd have been good.
Turned
That'd
out
been
he was
good.
already dead.
I gotta say, dude is pretty trusting to like, here, drink this free bottle of stuff. Like, okay.
He was begging him to
No
drink it. I'm
downside possible.
like,
this.
no.
That's the first thing they tell you when you go to bars. Like, don't just drink anything anybody gives you. That's just bad news.
Anytime you go to a concert and someone's passing something around, you don't want to drink that. You're gonna have some experience you did not expect to have.
Oh yeah, as a man who was roofied in the middle of nowhere in Germany, I can.
My brother got roofied at a concert one time.
Oh.
You know, someone was just passing around a drink, and he's like, "Oh yeah, sure." And then next thing he knows, he's like, "How do I stand again? I don't remember." So yeah, don't drink drinks from a stranger. Let's just say that.
Did he also end up in Germany?
He did not end up in Germany.
Okay.
Mondo,
If you start in
get roofied
Tennessee and then end up in Germany, it's bad.
I did, but I was already in Germany, thankfully. Like, I didn't like get roofied and end up in Germany. I was already in Germany, but then I came to walking around an old Bavarian city, not knowing where the fuck I was or how to get back to my hotel room, and with a dead cell phone. Luckily, if you walk over to a cab driver, all the hotel room keys have the address of your hotel, and you just hand it to them, and they'll figure it out and charge you like 5 times what you should probably pay. But still.
Yeah.
Very smart.
Well, good safety tips. So Jody, why don't you give us a comic comparison?
We're all about the tips here.
All right. Comic comparison. Gonna be a little difficult this time because there is no comic for this one. This one is actually a completely original story. It does share the title. I mean, Showdown is kind of a pretty generic title. There was a Two-Fisted Tales number 37 had a story named Showdown, but it wasn't the same story at all. And so this one was actually produced as an episode of an unsold anthology called Two-Fisted Tales, based on that. Two-Fisted Tales was EC's like war comic. So a lot of the stories in there were Revolutionary War, Civil War, World War II, Korean War. So it was all war-based stories. And I guess they were trying to start a new series that was just that, but it never really took off. And so they made this an episode of Tales from the Crypt. But yeah, for the first time in 48 episodes here, no comic. They didn't do this very often, but occasionally the writers just got to write whatever they wanted. And I guess Frank Darabont had done enough stuff that they just trusted him to make up his own thing.
Was Yellow a Two-Fisted Tales?
It was a Two-Fisted Tales. Yeah, no,
Right.
100%. That's the kind of stuff that Two-Fisted Tales ran all the time. With stuff
Right.
like Yellow. Like it was a little more serious than your typical EC comic. You know, in the normal ones, you get some blood and guts, and you get some suggestive stuff, and Crypt Keeper cracking jokes. But Two-Fisted Tales was a serious comic about war and death and racism and stuff like that. Even though they slipped that into the Tales from the Crypt episodes or the issues, Two-Fisted Tales was really all about that kind of thing.
Right. This is the series where they were going to have. I wish they could have done this more. There's a couple clips where there's William Sadler played the quote Crypt Keeper character, where it was like he was kind of the host.
Yeah, he was like a army sergeant or something like that. He was something like that.
Yeah. There's some clips on YouTube that are really glorious if you're a William Sadler fan like we are. Yeah, that would have been an interesting what if they had gone forward with that. But you know, at least they got rolled into the Tales of the Crypt canon.
Yeah, I'm glad we got this episode, even though it's an atypical Tales from the Crypt episode. It's a good episode in and of itself. And I wish that series had existed, because I would have loved more of this kind of storytelling from these folks, because they know what they're doing and they can tell that kind of more emotional story like that.
Well, what's kind of interesting too is a lot of some of the more modern westerns kind of delve a lot into the horror realm. With like Bone Tomahawk is a great example.
Oh yeah.
And then the follow-up was called Mohawk. And then recently Old Henry. If you guys haven't seen that, it definitely, by no means is a horror movie, but it definitely takes some of those, like at one point they're basically trapped in a house trying to fight their way out of the house, which is kind of almost a Night of the Living Dead kind of feel to it. By the way, Old Henry, one of the best movies I've seen in the past few years. Just a fantastic movie. Again, 39 watching westerns nowadays. But I think it's really interesting though that like those kind of genres almost they kind of fit together really well.
Yeah.
Nice. All right.
Well, I mean, a lot of the great horror directors, especially the Italian ones, they cut their teeth in westerns, and like
the almighty Lucio Fulci.
Fulci made westerns, 100%.
Yeah,
Argento made western. Pretty much name an Italian horror director from the 70s and 80s. He made westerns in the 60s. So
well, and Carpenter, you know, he grew up on westerns. They always say that all he wanted to do was be a western director, and no one ever give him money to do it. So he had to take like western premises ideas and make them into, you know, more contemporary movies. You know, Assault Precinct 13, you know, it's kind of a western. Big Trouble, Little China was supposed to be a western, but they said no, we'll move to Chinatown, which is that movie's so ludicrous on so many levels, but it all works in the glorious.
I love Big Trouble.
All right, anything else we want to say about this episode? All right, let's move on to our episode rating. Rich, you can go first. We do 0 to 5, 5 being the best. You can do half points.
Yeah, I think this one's a solid 4 for me. I really liked it, and my Western take is, you know, give or take depending on my mood, and is bringing me back into that Western mood. So I'm happy about it. So, but yeah, I think it's a 4 for me.
Nice. All right, Jody.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this more than I expected to. So I'm going to go up a little higher. I'm going to go 4.5 for this one. It's not quite a perfect episode because I like my Tales from the Crypt a little grosser, a little nastier. But as far as just a standalone episode of TV, it was really enjoyable. I like the ride.
Mondo.
Exact same thoughts. I can't elaborate anymore on that. I have the exact same thoughts of Jody. 4.5. Just like I said, I like my Tales from the Crypt a little gooier. But 4.5 is pretty good. Pretty good.
Yeah, I'm going with the hive mind with a 4.5. Like,
Nice.
yeah. Like we've already said it all. It's a beautiful episode. It's got pathos. It's got visuals.
But we can do this show for 1,000 episodes. I'll still always laugh at Tommy saying, "Does Jason even like Tales from the Crypt?" Which is why I'm so happy when Jason gives a high rating to a show.
What episode was that on? I need to know. Like, at what point did he think
he just said in general, because like aside from the ones you really like, the ones you really love, like you talk them out of the park, but the ones that are maybe middle of the road, or me and Jody would get forced to, you're always like down, like you're always a point down from us.
Think about a bunch of lumberjacks sawing a man in a tree trunk, and I'm like, oh man, that's awesome.
that doesn't make a whole episode.
And Jason's like, where's my fucking Metamucil? This is bullshit.
Yeah, exactly. I'm an old grumpy man now. All right, let's move on. Hopefully we'll have something good from our Uncle Al. Al, take it away. Okay, Mondo, give us our song of the day.
All right, so it's funny is I had a song all picked out, ready to go, and then I heard Jody say something. I was like, wait, that's my new song of the day because it makes sense. And it actually fits into a conversation Rich and I had about the gate. So I'm gonna give you three songs I thought of. The first one was Bon Jovi's Dead or Alive.
Ooh.
That's what I was thinking of.
But then I realized that I don't like terrible music, so I didn't pick that. If there's one band that might be as bad as Led Zeppelin, it's Bon Jovi. And number two was and number two could be an official one, but the Highwaymen, the song The Highwayman. Which if you haven't heard that song, it's the Highwaymen was a super group with Chris Christopherson, Johnny Cash,
Okay.
Waylon Jennings, and Willie Nelson. And the song the song The Highwayman, or the Highwaymen, is just phenomenal. It's a great song. They didn't write it. It was written in the 70s. I can't remember the guy's name, but a really cool version of it came out a few years ago called The Highway Woman, with some prominent, like almost outlaw women country singers who kind of turned, because the song is each singer taking a different character and singing about their death and their struggles. And the Highway Women turned that around to talk about, like, I think one was about a Honduran immigrant trying to come to America and how she passed away, but her kids were able to survive. So really cool take on it. But then I had to go with my wheelhouse, which is heavy metal. And because Rich and I talked, so Rich and I were talking again about the Gate and about the band Sacrifice, who is rumored to do the soundtrack of the Gate, but Sacrifice were part of this really great Canadian thrash metal scene in the late 80s, maybe in the early 90s. Just Canadian metal in general that's coming out of that time. And you had Sacrifice, Voivod, who were very, very popular. Well, not popular, but they got more popular when Jason Newsted joined them after he left Metallica, because he wanted to go play good music. And not good music. Sorry, that's the wrong term. I didn't mean as an insult, Jason. He wanted to play more challenging music, I should say. Like he wasn't fulfilled by what he was playing in Metallica. Let's be honest. And then but you had who else? Yeah, who's on the scene? Oh, a band with the greatest name of all time, Kick Axe. Come on. You had the Canadian Slaughter, which was way better than their shitty Las Vegas glam metal fucking guys, who are Mark Slaughter used to shop at the Kmart that I used to work at when I was 16. Super nice guy though. One time I sold him and Sebastian Bach some binoculars. That's a weird fucking story. But anyhow, I'm going with the Canadian band Annihilator, who has a very storied career. And I think they just released a new record this year called Metal. And from what I heard, it's pretty fucking terrible. But their early stuff was thrash metal bordering on like early death metal, much like early bands like Possessed or Sodom or Creator, that kind of went the more grittier route when it came to thrash metal, even outdoing a lot of their American counterparts. Their second demo they released, and it's gonna be the title track off that demo, called Welcome to Your Death, which I first heard on the compilation album that I bought like back when I was 16. And it's just a really, really cool song. And when Jody mentioned, I think Jody or Rich, one of you guys earlier said the term "Welcome to Your Death," and I was like, "Fuck yeah, I gotta change everything now." Because once I heard that, I'm like, "That's got to be the song of the day." So, song of the day by the band Annihilator from Canada, our good friends to the north. And off the demo "Welcome to Your Death," it is a song "Welcome to Your Death." But if anybody out there actually wants to really dig into this band, their first full length was Alice in Hell, based around a popular tale. Really good music though, and a really great band.
Once again, Mondo, you took us on a journey, and it was a satisfying conclusion.
It makes
Your
me
knowledge.
like I for anybody who just skips over those parts, like I respect that. Don't get me wrong, but like please know how much I enjoy saying it. So please, for anyone who bears with me, I love you guys.
Yeah, if you ever want to go back and watch these episodes with video where you can see what we're doing, when I'm doing like the synopsis, I am obviously reading the entire time. I'm reading my notes. Mondo is just off the top of his head. Like this is the stuff that just floats around in his brain. He knows all this.
I can't remember math half the time, but I can fucking tell you who wrote like some obscure Norwegian black metal song from 1992.
Yeah,
I mean,
if
to
you're a Dash the Crypt super fan and want to do like a super edit of Mondo's song of the days,
It'll be like 9 hours long.
I mean, to be fair, my kids, we watched the new Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers movie.
so good.
Which is really great. Like it's just reference after reference. Like if you're a 40-year-old man or somewhere thereabouts, you're going to see everything that you remember from your childhood pop up on screen at some point. And after it was over, my oldest son was like, "So this is kind of like what Dad's brain is like, right? Like just except for with horror movies, it's just references all the time and little clips and stuff." And I'm like, "You're not wrong. I can't really do anything with that." So yeah, this is how all of our brains work here. So Mondo has got this deep music knowledge
No,
that
that's
I
like
can really hope to touch.
When Rich was like,
Oh,
I hope
yeah.
not bothering you. I'm like, bothering me about music, about metal. No, fuck no. Like,
This is Mondo's catnip.
like
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
it's
You never
like in
know. You never
October.
know.
It's like in October when a coworker's like, "Hey, I want to watch a scary movie. You got any recommendations?" Like, "Oh, it's my time to shine."
Pull out an entire list. You're just like, I got 100 for you.
what can me and the kids watch this weekend? Have you ever heard of Cannibal Holocaust?
Oh yeah. I haven't seen that yet, actually.
Ooh, it's good.
That is on our list of ones to review. My brother is very excited to get me to do that.
Oh,
one.
nice.
I think we can find some guests for you around here in these parts.
I will tell you, even if you don't watch it for a while, like on the drive to work or something, put the soundtrack on.
Oh, it's a great soundtrack.
The
Oh, yeah.
soundtrack is like,
Amazing.
probably top 5 at least horror soundtracks of all time, and that's not exaggerating.
I was listening to
All
some show and they had the soundtrack on in the background. I was like, it wasn't really at all, but I was like, nice pull. Well done.
Of all people, like I'm not really a big fan of the jam bands and how they do, but Buckethead, if you haven't heard his rendition of Cannibal Holocaust, the theme, fucking wonderful. Just he makes it so haunting and so beautiful. Like it's that's worth like looking up on YouTube and watching that video. I think it's great stuff.
So
And
So
then there was
Buckethead was like a real good guitarist, right?
Yes. That's an understatement.
Phenomenal guitar player. Like,
Well, it's funny because I loved Guns N' Roses
Mhm.
like growing up. I
Yeah.
mean, they were my favorite when I was young, and I mean still are. But when they broke up and then Buckethead came on, I didn't listen to them with Chinese Democracy, and I was just like, I'm not gonna dive into that for some reason. I don't know why.
and you
but
want to know
it-
what? It's not a knock on Slash when I say this.
Mhm.
It's a compliment to Buckethead that he's a better guitar player than Slash, and by leaps and bounds, I'm going to say. And I don't mean that as a knock on Slash at all. I mean that as how good Buckethead is as a guy. But I like Slash's music better.
Oh yeah, him and Miles Kennedy I thought were amazing.
Yeah, I mean, just because you're great at your instrument doesn't mean you can write great songs. It's like Yngwie Malmsteen is a perfect example that anybody other knows who he is. Guitar virtuoso, probably one of the best like pure guitar players ever to walk the face of the earth. Can't write a song to save his fucking life. except for Hiroshima. That song was okay. But that's where I think like Buckethead is just a phenomenal player. But sometimes those players, like they play at such a high level, it's hard for like most of us normal people to understand what they're trying to do.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
I might have driven with some friends in college about 6-7 hours to go see Guns N' Roses with Buckethead.
How was it? How was the show?
It was okay. It was like a big stadium kind of clusterfuck tour.
Okay.
It wasn't the best in the world. This is like circa 2003. So yeah, it was good, but wasn't the best.
And Jason, if you're still playing guitar, you should learn how to play Cannibal Holocaust on guitar. I promise you, it's really easy and it's really fun to play because it allows itself open to a lot of interpretation.
All right, let's move on to some trivia, Jody.
All right, trivia today is short and sweet. In this episode, the writer Frank Darabont, who has written many, many wonderful works